Here are 9 things I wish all English learners knew. Number 1, native speakers don't care about your grammar mistakes. I understand that you care about your grammar mistakes. I understand that your teacher cares about your grammar mistakes. And I understand that other students care about your grammar mistakes because as an English learner, you're in an English learner environment. But in the real world, the focus is not on your English skills. The focus is on how you communicate your message, your ideas. Is that a good idea that you shared? If it's a great idea, but you made a grammar mistake, that doesn't matter as long as your idea is great. And native speakers in the real world are not English teachers. They're not English learners. They don't know grammar. They never learned grammar. They don't care about grammar. And quite frankly, they think grammar is pretty boring.
This is boring.
But as long as you're understood and you're communicating great ideas, native speakers don't care about your grammar mistakes. And part of the reason that native speakers don't care about your grammar mistakes is number 2, native speakers don't speak perfect English. I'm an English teacher, so when I'm speaking to people, students, native speakers, my ear is very attuned to noticing grammar mistakes or awkward sentence structure or incorrect pronunciation. And let me tell you, I notice these 3 things from native speakers as well. Of course, not to the same degree or frequency as with students, but absolutely native speakers make mistakes. And often when a native speaker makes a mistake, even if someone said to them, oh, hey, you used the wrong verb tense, they would say, I don't care. Because remember, point 1, native speakers don't actually care about grammar mistakes. As long as they're communicating an idea, that is all that matters. So it's okay that you make grammar mistakes because native speakers, even myself as an English teacher, we don't speak perfect English. So you don't have to speak perfect English either. Number 3, you don't need to speak like a native. The truth is that you can have a thick accent, you can use direct translations, you can use incorrect grammar, and you can still be a great communicator. You can still get promoted in your career. How do I know this? Because I live in an English-speaking country. I interact with non-native English speakers all the time who are in high-level positions or who are succeeding in their life. And they do this without sounding like a native. Yes, I understand that as an English learner, of course you want to push yourself and of course you want to reduce your accent, sound more like an American or like a British speaker, use more natural expressions, and I certainly encourage you to do that, but don't let that prevent you from speaking now or from communicating now or from applying to that job now. You can speak confidently, give presentations, get your dream job with your English skills now, even if you don't sound like an American. Now, although you don't need to speak like a native, number 4, you do need to learn phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions. You've probably already learned that native speakers don't speak like textbooks in the real world, which is part of the problem why you've been studying for so long, and yet you go out into the real world and you can't understand native speakers. It's because native speakers, we use phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions that generally students don't learn or aren't comfortable with. So in order to confidently communicate in the real world with native speakers, you need to understand us. You can't have a conversation one way. Yes, you don't need to speak like a native, but you do need to understand natives because you can't have a conversation successfully if you don't understand the person you're talking to. And in order to understand natives, you have to expand your vocabulary with phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions. But remember, You don't necessarily have to use them in your speech. You just have to be aware of them and know what they mean so you can understand natives, but you can use the expressions that you're more comfortable with because you've learned them your entire life. Number 5, there's a big difference between learning and using a language. One of the things that I know students struggle with the most is that they don't feel confident speaking. Or, like we just talked about, they can't understand native speakers, but they can understand their teacher. And the reason why is because students spend most of their time learning the language, absorbing the language, but not using the language. Students focus too much on input, absorbing the language, perhaps from watching these videos where I teach you inspiration and tips like this, or where I teach you specific grammar structures or vocabulary. That is excellent, and you absolutely need input. You need to know the phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions. You need to know the grammar rules. You need to know the pronunciation rules as well. But what's missing often is that output where you take that information you just learned and you practice it. You practice, practice, practice. You practice speaking, so you improve your speaking skills. You practice listening to real English, so you improve your listening skills. And that is the difference between learning a language, which is, of course, important, but using a language, which is equally important. I know a lot of students hesitate to speak in English because they don't feel confident. They have this fear, and it prevents them from getting that output, from taking their knowledge and using it by speaking with native speakers, giving presentations, going to job interviews. But that leads us to number 6, feeling nervous when speaking is normal. Did you know that public speaking is the greatest fear in the world? And this isn't for someone speaking in a foreign language. This is for someone speaking in their native language. Survey after survey show that public speaking is the number one fear. It's even a greater fear for people than the fear of death. So don't be concerned if you feel shy or nervous before speaking in a foreign language. The reality is that if you were to give a presentation in your native language, you would probably feel shy and nervous. When I first started teaching students, making YouTube videos, giving more presentations, I was terrified. And I still get nervous to this day, even after making hundreds, thousands of videos and presentations. Feeling nervous is normal, and feeling nervous is expected. The thing you need to remember is that you cannot wait for that feeling of nervousness to disappear. You have to take action now. You have to feel that nervousness in your body and still go to that presentation, go to that networking event, go to that job interview, go to that group with other native speakers. You can't wait for that fear of nervousness to disappear because you'll be waiting forever. The best way to get rid of that feeling in your body is by doing the action. The more you do the action, the more your body will get comfortable with that feeling, and that sensation will become less and less, even though it might still be there, even after you've been speaking for years and years. A lot of students feel disadvantaged because they don't have someone to speak with, or they live in a non-English speaking country. But number 7, you can improve your speaking alone. This is a hard one for students to accept. It's a hard one for me as a teacher to convince students to start doing, because they have this belief that in order to improve your speaking, someone must hear the conversation. The conversation must be two ways. But right now, I'm not having a conversation with anyone. There is nobody in front of me. I'm speaking to a camera. Do you think by doing these videos, I'm improving my public speaking skills? I'm learning how to articulate more clearly. I'm improving my confidence. I'm learning how to improve my body language, my delivery, my overall speech. Absolutely, I am. And I know that because if I go back and watch my very first video and I compare it to this video, there is a huge difference in how I communicate. And I am not speaking with anyone. You have yourself. You can absolutely open your mouth and start talking. But to improve your speaking skills, you have to open your mouth and have the sounds come out. You can't think it in your head because, yes, maybe that voice in your head is saying the words, but it is very different from actually opening the mouth and producing the sounds. You can speak by yourself, you can record yourself, you can look in the mirror, you can narrate your day as you're doing chores, you can ask yourself questions and answer. You can absolutely improve your speaking skills alone. Number 8, there is no finish line. The reality is that you're a lifelong English learner. You're never going to get to a point where you say, well, I've learned it all. I can throw out my dictionaries. I can cancel all my course subscriptions. I can unsubscribe from all English learning channels. Please don't unsubscribe because I have learned it all. You will never get to that point, and that's a very good thing. Imagine there was a doctor who went to medical school 10 years ago and never learned anything new after that. Would you want to fly in a plane and you learned that the pilot graduated from pilot school 20 years ago and had never tried to improve their skill after that? Of course not. Every profession is constantly learning. You're constantly improving your skills in everything that we do. And this isn't even just with learning, it's with your relationships with people, it's with how you do anything. You're always trying to improve these areas, and the same goes for your English. The reality is, if you're at A1 right now, the second you get to A2, you're going to push that further and say, okay, now my goal is B2 or B1. And then you're going to push that and say, now my goal is C1. Now my goal is C2. Okay, I got to the C2 level. Now what? Well, now my goal is learn how to present confidently. Now my goal is to write a book. Now my goal is to improve my body language. Now my goal is to give presentations to large groups of people. No matter what you achieve, you will always look towards the next goal, and that is a very good thing. You should celebrate that fact that you are a lifelong learner. And because you are a lifelong learner, number 9, enjoy the process. Let's say you decided to start a new hobby. So you choose soccer, and then you play a couple times and you realize, you know what? I don't really like this very much. Are you going to feel that motivated to improve your soccer skills, to go to soccer practice, to want to keep playing soccer? If you don't like the actual sport, then of course you're not going to feel that motivated to practice or improve. And the same goes with learning English. There are so many different ways to learn. And it really depends on your learning style as well. Maybe you prefer different styles of videos, different styles of learning techniques, different styles of exercises. But if you're following a specific learning method or a specific teacher and you don't really enjoy the process, well, then you're not going to feel very motivated to do it. But if you're in a program and you love the style of lessons, you find them so interesting and enjoyable, and you look forward to learning a new lesson, well, then it's going to make everything so much easier because you're going to be motivated to log into that course and complete the lesson. Or if you find a teacher on YouTube, hopefully me, then you're going to be motivated to watch a video from that teacher every single day. And the more exposure you get to a language, the faster you'll improve your skills. But if you aren't excited about how you're learning, just take some time and find a method that works for you because you need to enjoy the process. Because remember, you're a lifelong learner. Many of my students tell me that they love learning English with the news. So you can watch this lesson right now where we review a news article together.